Hello. Welcome to. I am not actually a gas station attendant or whatever. I'm not actually a gas station attendant. Welcome. So this is where we get to we've spoken of I guess you could call it a rise. It wasn't much of one, but now we'll talk of the fall.
Good times, bad times. I've had my share. Here they come.
Yeah. So by this point, as I'd said already, Christopher was already living in Milwaukee, so he would drive the 4 hours to Kalamazoo, I don't know, once every month or so, and we would practice, and then we would also usually have some sort of show booked. So I don't know, that was just kind of the way things went from here on out. So most of our shows are kind of notable, if for no other reason than we just were playing so few of them. Yeah. So we were talking about Detroit Fest last. I think the next one of note would be we played a quote-unquote Battle of the Bands in Ypsilanti, Michigan, the white trash neighbor of Ann Arbor. But it was a Battle of the Bands, I suppose, but it was definitely a punk show. It was done by kids who, were going to school there. We played, I think it was Mainspring and Broken Hearts Are Blue, I want to say. Is that what you recall?
I seriously, there's not a whole lot I remember about that show.
Yeah, I definitely remember Broken Hearts Are Blue did play it.
Yeah. And
that Broken Hearts Are Blue won the contest, but I think we got runner up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those two, yeah, us against them that's a fair thing. Oh, you know what? Hold on. We do need to talk about one other thing about the Detroit Fest, considering you just brought up Broken Hearts Are Blue. They played on the third day, and it was that fest.
They were added last minute, I want to say.
Yeah, and that fest already had a pretty poor attendance as it was, but by this time it was literally maybe 20 people. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was some kid that just fucking hated Broken Hearts Are Blue and was heckling them to no end, fuck you guys, sound like Smashing Pumpkins and shit like that. And they handled it pretty well. Ryan Gage handled it pretty well. He just kind of did his little flick of the wrist, whatever, and then they did their songs. But sorry, that was one thing. There's a notable heckler during their set.
Yeah, well, and also I remember I don't remember the heckles, but there was a woman. You remember Nate's lady friend?
Yes, she will factor in this episode.
Yes, she will. But she was there. I mean, we talked about this before, but our friend Nate, he was in the band Bubble Jug. If you Google them, I'm sure you can find a MediaFire file to download. I doubt they're on Spotify or any streaming platform.
I do believe their record is probably about $10 on Discogs if you want to just go ahead and blindly buy it.
Yeah, I believe you can find the Vest Pocket Psalm Bubble Jug split LP for $7 or $8, and then possibly the postage was more than the actual record.
Yeah.
But anyways, he was a good friend of ours. There's absolutely nothing but love for him, R.I.P. But he was in our orbit constantly. He was he lived in DC, but I guess his parents worked for the airline industry. Yeah. And so he got free tickets. So he would always do things like take planes to Kalamazoo, Michigan from DC or to Detroit or wherever. But he was with us. He was staying at our house a lot. And he had this lady that he started bringing around as well. I don't remember her name. She was nice enough. She was very strange. but anyway, she was also heckling Ryan Gage, and afterwards, I think I went up to her and was kind of oh, I know you, and you're kind of my friend, and Ryan's kind of my friend, and I wanted to be and I think I went up to her, I was he's actually a really cool dude, and she's That's cool. Yeah, I was just fucking with them. We drank some beer outside afterwards. Like, but I don't know why. It's just one of those things. They showed up. I don't think they were even on the flyer, but they just sort of showed up and played. And I will say that even though during that time in history for hardcore punk, there were a lot of bands that were of that sort of sound. It wasn't that fest was not really their.
That was not the move. Yeah.
So, but yeah. Anyways, we played in a house show in Ypsilanti. There was a dude. I think Ian. Earlier we were talking, and you said his name might have been Brown Dave.
I might have made that up because we did have.
We had a purple Dave.
We had a purple Dave, so it only makes sense that they would have a brown Dave. And he was wearing all brown. R.I.P. Purple Dave, by the way.
Yeah, he was a unique character for sure.
To say the least. And so
real quick, I know that I'm kind of going off the tracks here, but Purple Dave memory real quick. He played that local showcase we played at Fourth Coast with it was like us and In Ourselves and Jihad and Ordination of Aaron and Fletcher, like basically every local band that was kind of part of our little family of bands. And he was there. There were actually a decent amount of people there, which strange because if you got any single one of us opening for some out-of-state band, you might get 10 or 20 people there. But anyways, he was there. He had a portable, like a boom box, and in between songs, bands would be talking, and he would put the boom box up to his ears and listen. I think he was recording the bands while they were playing.
Yeah.
And then he was listening just to see how it sounded while they're giving in between song explanations and shit. Yeah.
I remember, I don't know if it was at that show, but there were many times where he'd be like, "Hey man, have you ever heard of Dirty Looks? They're really good." And he had like a leather vest with a Dirty Looks sticker on it. It wasn't even a patch, it was a sticker. And he really liked that band.
I had my mom drive me around once when me and Andy and Joe were looking at houses, and I was just like, "Hey, let me show you some of the places we're looking at." And we were driving somewhere in downtown Kalamazoo, and he's there sunbathing, like in a pair of purple Speedos. Like he was. I think also he had a band. I've never heard them. I think Tim Hayden had told me about them, but it was a band where like the description was every single song sounded like the MTV theme. Yeah, so anyways, but Brown Dave wasn't quite as flashy.
Yeah, he was a short, squat, round man. Yes, he was wearing all brown. He kind of had like his hair combed over pretty tightly on his head with like it was short, but he still had like curly. Like he looked like a little like medieval, like I don't know. He had a little mustache. He kind of looked like David Crosby, but even shorter and like rounder. And he was very, very intoxicated, and he had a big mason jar before mason jars were popular, full of a yellowish brownish liquid, which I'm assuming was some sort of heavily alcoholed beverage with one single solitary strawberry floating in it. And he'd just be stumbling around, and then in between bands, he'd just walk up to the microphone and just mumble lines from the Woodstock movie. He'd be like, "Hey, don't take the brown acid, and then just like stumble off.
He would also announce us, if I recall. Like, they would give him put a piece of paper in his hand. He'd do his, like, Woodstock quote, and then they'd be like, "Hey, man, tell him what band's playing." Alexis, Constantine, St. Kathy. Like, it was... Yeah, so, I don't know. We played, it was a fun show.
Gordon
afterwards. Oh yeah, didn't he he promoted his label and while we were playing, like he's like, "Oh yeah,
It was one of those, everybody gets up and talks about their feelings with the microphone, and he decided to
to explain how much he liked us, but also you should buy his record. That sounds actually mean. I'm just fucking.
It's not like no, but he did do that.
Yeah, he did.
But by the way, you should buy some records. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Bev Clone Constantine split going like hotcakes.
Can't keep them in the store. Oh boy.
Well, and he couldn't. I mean,
no, he couldn't. No, it's true.
I don't. That's a weird thing that doesn't happen anymore. Like a band like us, clearly at the very best, the bottom part of the middle tier of bands, and that's being, in my opinion, that's being generous in terms of like draw, in terms of like everything. But a band with any degree of visibility could easily sell 1,000 or 2,000 records.
Yeah.
Like that blows my mind because, you know, if I have a point where I'm doing a band again, if we end up doing a record, we'll be lucky if we sell 200. Like it's fucking nuts. Well, and I think like we'll get to this a little bit later, but like when we played that fest, that the second time, the More Than Music Fest in Columbus, we had our 7-inch out, and it had already sold out of its first pressing of like 500 or 1,000 records. Well,
like, I mean, yeah, if it wasn't. I mean, and it was also just kind of I'm not trying to downplay, but it's also kind of a courtesy thing when you're on tour. Like, hey, we've got records. This is what we have to survive on tour. Like, buy one so we can get a burrito. You know, that kind of thing. But so, yeah, honestly, I don't remember much about that show, like except for Gordon sang with us on Brown Dave, and also that's the first time I ever had tempeh.
Yes, so that's lots of great memories. But the highlight was we went to a Coney Island. Anyone from Michigan, specifically from the east side of the state, knows that you can pick up a rock and throw it in any direction and you'll hit a Coney Island hot dog, which is a very specific sort of hot dog that I only found out about later in life, I guess. Like, but anyways, the point is that they had one that had all these like vegan options, so you could get a tempeh burger, and I think they had like veggie dogs, and like honestly at that point in my life that was like holy shit. Literally felt like being a kid in a fucking candy store. There were so few places like that at that point.
It was like the future is now, man. Like, I can't believe you can get this at a restaurant, you know.
Yeah Well, in Kalamazoo specifically had so few of those things. Next was sort of wind up to our tour, Ian. I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there was like a bunch of stuff that happened in the summer that just wasn't. It was just us gearing up, saving money. Not that I was making any money at all anyway.
No.
And just practicing constantly.
Yeah. So in my whole life at that point, I mean, I worked at a home for developmentally disabled adults. And so I would some weeks I would work 60, 70 hours because I had nothing up. Like, unless there was a show, and there weren't that many shows.
Yeah.
Or we were playing a show somewhere, there was no real reason for me to like not be trying to like, you know, get a shitload of money saved up, which I didn't do, by the way. But,
yeah,
but nonetheless, I was working 50, 60 some, you know, hours a week. And then I was like obsessed with this young lady I had talked about on the last one, from Indianapolis, and we would talk every day for hours, and I don't know. It was pretty much my life at that point.
We were all kind of cultivating fairly unhealthy relationships with other people.
Yeah.
It was slowly building to a crescendo.
Yeah.
And, you know.
And to be fair, like, I mean, I suppose by the very definition, there were some pretty unhealthy elements of it. You know, like the fact she had a boyfriend.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll do it.
But, you know, her and I got along. We really liked each other, blah, 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 blah. On the other end of things, I don't know there was, as far as just simply getting along, I don't know that was the case with anyone else. Like, but yeah, we were all like going through some
in one
shit.
way or another. Yeah, there was some serious stuff going on.
But so
we won't
that
talk about too much.
yeah, exactly. But anyway, so that I guess this leads me to where I'm going on this with this wind up from tour. So said young lady showed up to surprise me in Kalamazoo. We ended up hanging out, and it seemed that things were over with her and her boyfriend, and it looked like we were going to be together and blah blah blah. So, several hours of making out and all that, and I was, a young virgin, so I was just like super in love and super excited. And then, she went back to Indianapolis and wouldn't return my calls for quite a while. But anyway, so she basically told me it wasn't going to happen, that she, made a mistake, which she did. But, so that led to me having my first like meltdown where everything just sort of crumbled down around me. I quit my job. I didn't have any prospects for like figuring out a way to make money, but I was done, and I was like, well, we're going on tour in a couple of weeks anyways, so like I'll pick up my last check, which will be, $600 or $700, and I'll pay my rent for the month, and then I'll put aside a couple of hundred in a container in my bedroom closet so that when I get back, I have a little bit of money, which was really good because I think I actually even started looking for it before we left for tour because I wanted spending money on tour.
Yeah.
And couldn't find it. And honestly, that was the best possible thing that could have happened to me. But anyways, so I just lost my shit. I was just depressed and didn't want to do anything that involved having to help anyone else at that point in my life. I just wanted to like curl up on my bed and or listen to music or watch movies, whatever I had to do to not think about the shit that was going on in my personal life.
Yeah.
And then actually, again, we're not going to give too many details, but something very similar happened with Joe, except that it was with his girlfriend of God. How long was that? Probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Which, as you know, when you are in your early 20s, that's a fucking eternity.
Right. That was real messy. Basically, the point was that was really messy too.
Yeah, and he also did something very similar to me and was just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not even going to give 2 weeks notice. I'm done. I'm just not showing up at work anymore.
Yeah. And
so
I was in a torturous relationship as well that was just like really wanted it to work, and the other person, I'm not sure what they wanted. I mean,
I don't know that they wanted anything really.
No, they didn't want anything. They just wanted to like flit around to do whatever they wanted to do, and it was very confusing and just constantly like on and off and stuff. So we were all, except for Chris, in a state of like agitation, sadness, anger, whatever, just constantly. And we're getting ready to go on tour. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, and then I met another young lady, and it was, I mean, as shitty as it sounds, it was something to fill up my time and not have to think about the girl who at the time I wanted to be with, who, had a boyfriend, 3 hours away. So that happened, and it wasn't healthy. It wasn't a good situation. And
long story short, we were all already just in a very dire mood. And then Chris's van broke down.
He had bought a van while in Milwaukee, and he started for Michigan in this van. And guess it broke down right on the Wisconsin-Illinois border. Like right in like where Great America is in Lake County. So we all get, to Kalamazoo, and we don't know how the fuck we're going to go on tour. I mean, I didn't hardly have any money. None of us
did.
And I might have had more money than you did, probably.
Easily, yes. That was not hard.
Yeah. So anyways, our good friend Adam Kuthi from Inso Gray, one day we're just sitting talking and like, yeah, I have no idea if we're going on tour or not. Like, I have no fucking clue how this is going to happen. And at some point we probably had even considered getting in an actual car and driving across country in a car, which fun. But he's just like, well, like, I saved up all this money. I was going to go backpacking this summer, but that's not happening anymore. So I can loan you the money to buy a van. And
which
we were
is
like,
amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
And just it seemed pretty dire. And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, here. And just like, it was that important.
Yeah.
That we went on, and it's like, damn, man.
So he basically lent us like $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
And we never paid him back. Sorry, Adam. But so yeah, we got in the van. We bought a van from some dude somewhere
just
in
outside of Kalamazoo. Like, it was
Yeah.
kind of out by KZU Skatesu. Not that really matters, but it was a
Yeah.
large blue dented up van
with 2 gas tanks.
one of which had a hole in it, and we had to play the game, which gas tank has the hole in it? And I think we lost on the first try. So right off the bat, it was huffing gas fumes around the city.
I think the first van we looked at was like a conversion van. And we tried to talk them down. Like, we brought Sean Barney with us because he was the guy with like some degree of like mechanical knowledge, and he's like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense, but I guess if you want to buy it, go for it. And we tried to offer him like $500 less than what he was asking, and the guy apparently was very offended by it. He's like, and we were just like, okay, never mind, see ya. So yeah, we bought this van, and it had 2 gas tanks. I think we built a loft in it, and we stole a couch off of the sidewalk in Kalamazoo and put it in as our passenger.
Yeah, it was seat. The beginning of summer, so in a college town, so that means they're just throwing shit away on the street.
Yeah.
Left and right, you can just turn a corner and find a couch, which we did.
Yeah, it was fucking nuts. But so we got that part of it squared away. We had I don't know if friend's the right word. I would say probably more. And for Chris, it might have been a friend. It was more of friendship. I think for the rest of us, it was more of a pleasant acquaintance. But we got our friend Graham to play second guitar with us.
Yeah, Chris definitely orchestrated that, and it was just kind of. Well, I guess we can bring in this whole aspect of the beginning of this tour is Chris befriended this person Graham and was like, he's playing second guitar, and so we're like, okay, Graham's playing second guitar. That is now a thing. And what was it like? It felt like immediately after, it was kind of like, hey, and our friend Nate, who we mentioned before, is going to play whatever the fuck he brought with him. Did that happen immediately after? It seemed like it did.
I think it might have even been like, like in that scene in the Omen. It's all for you, Nate. No, but like, I think it was always like, we all loved Nate, and so it was like, oh yeah, we're going to take him on tour, and he'll play wood blocks, or he has a flute, or...
Yeah, and then the person that I was dating at the time played violin. Not very well. And we decided, oh, well, we should definitely have her play too, which I feel like she was just kind of like, okay. It wasn't like this, like,
yeah, I don't think she was stoked. Well,
this is a solid plan.
Didn't you guys... You forgot to mention you went to San Diego right after you graduated.
Okay, yes.
For like a couple of weeks.
So after we had befriended Guyver One and all those guys from San Diego, I think we all somehow got a wild hair up our ass and decided we all needed to move to San Diego as well. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I, like literally the day that I graduated from high school, which is to say I did not go to the graduation, but I actually had to go back to school to literally do one homework assignment in class to pass with a D, because that's how little I gave a fuck about school at that time, which was really smart. And I got home super early. I was like, I'm done. I graduated. Let's go to San Diego. So we took a 3-day bus trip, Greyhound bus trip to San Diego and stayed there for a week and got kind of a lay of the land and stuff. And, not trying to name drop or brag, but I did get some OG Dungeons and Dragons books from a guy from 3 Mile Pilot, which is kind of cool. But we had some adventures there that don't need to be talked about here, and sort of made better friends with the San Diego people a little bit, I think. Mm-hmm. Well, we won't get into that. But so, yeah. And this plan had already been, the plan of this person that I was dating playing violin had already been implanted. So at one point, it was a 2-week stay, actually. At one point, we ran out of money because we were stupid and young. And not only at one point did we find a $20 bill on the ground, which we spent all on damaged health food, because there's a store that sold that for some reason in San Diego. We decided, or actually somebody told us, hey, you know what? And this is 1996, by the way. They're like, you can sign up for like food stamps, but not food stamps. Like in California at that time, they just gave you money. Mm-hmm. So you can just sign up for it and they'll just give you $300. And so we did that. We're just like, fuck, okay. And we spent the day getting all that done. So we got $300. We bought her a pickup for her violin, and I bought me a shitty ride cymbal for that tour because I had broken the other one. So we rode back on a 3-day bus trip, eating dried pasta, me carrying a fucking 20-inch ride cymbal on the bus all the way home.
Did that take up all the $300 you got?
Most of it. Yeah, I think yeah. It was a pretty cheap one, but like we had a little bit of money left over, but I don't even know what we did with it.
Probably ate. You probably feed yourself,
But yeah, we were still eating dried pasta on the way home because we just had no money. Yeah. So everything was set. Everything was set to, I guess, go. So we just practiced for I think 2 weeks straight.
Yeah, we would play random shows to the point, I think I booked us a show in Marshall, Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Because, my attitude with Marshall was oh, shit, well, kids show up to Marshall shows. So in my head, the idea was we're going to go to the show. We're going to get paid pretty well. So we'll have maybe $100 or $200 ready to go for us for tour.
Yeah.
Instead, I think we got paid $40, which still wasn't bad at the time. But
I remember they just had weird kind of stage lights, but they were on the floor.
Oh, really?
I think we played on the floor too, but there were these weird kind of flashy lights that, and I had that Vistalite drum set, and it was just a weird ambiance. I don't know.
Yeah, we played Marshall a couple of times, but that was definitely at that point I was like, all right, Everett will get us paid and we need money. So it wasn't a bad show. I don't want it to sound like I was but it was definitely okay, we're going to go, 30, 40 miles east of us, so we can play a show before tour. It might have also been partly to tighten up, but I think mostly it was we need to get some money in our hands.
So we were, like I said, I was just there. We were all just kind of there constantly at the house. Mm-hmm. And I remember specifically, at that time, I was 18, and my hands were even, as soon as I started puberty, my hands were so sweaty. I'm a very sweaty person, and I started getting scared while I was playing because I would have to grip the sticks so hard that because they'd be slipping out of my hands just constantly, and it was embarrassing, and I thought I was getting carpal tunnel because I was just absolutely had a death grip on these sticks at all times. And, also not knowing what I'm doing and being poor, I would just be constantly breaking sticks left and right. Mm-hmm. So I would just flip them over and, play them upside down. And they're just chewed to bits. Those sticks were just chewed, and they were
They also
splintering.
cut the hell out of your hands.
That's what I was getting to. They're splintering in my hands, and my hands were just bleeding. I had badass calluses, after that. So it was actually good. I mean, in a way, it was kind of good to toughen my fucking hands up. But that's basically what I remember from those practices. Is just we just heads down constantly, doing. Also, Graham would just noodle. He'd just kind of do some very twinkly guitar stuff by himself.
Yeah,
a lot.
Well, and the thing is the worst part for me, like if we're talking about the preparation, the gear stuff, like as far as that goes, I could have not known any of the songs by that point because I had like probably a 200-watt combo bass combo amp.
Yeah.
With a 15. It was fine when there was one guitarist who wanted to play insanely loud. But that guitarist, yes, Chris, you did play too loud.
Yeah.
I think he got like a JCM 800 or some shit. So he went from like having a loud amp to having a much louder amp.
Right.
And then Graham couldn't, in terms of volume, couldn't keep up with him.
Right.
So it was just really it was kind of the you and Chris show at that point in terms of like,
I mean, but that also built up because it's like, fuck, he's so loud.
Yeah.
And we were never, again, previous listeners will remember we did not play on the stage. We never had a sound guy. It was like, give us a mic. That's it. So it was like, yeah, it wasn't me and Chris. It was me versus Chris, or Chris versus me.
Pretty much, yeah.
So it really built up my stamina because I had to wallop the shit out of everything just to be heard.
Yeah. This is something that happens with young musicians, but it's just like, God damn, dude, you don't have to play that loud. We're playing VFWs in houses. Like, you really don't need that much volume. And You know what? People are going to hear what you're playing if you just turn it down a few notches.
Balance.
But, so it really didn't matter. I mean, I was pushing my bass amp. It was fucking clipping like a motherfucker. Like, yeah, it was bad. But, we played that show in Marshall, and then we played with... I booked a show for Inhumanity and End of Century Party. Yeah. And that was, I don't know. Apparently I had said something in between songs about being fat that come to find out many years later, the singer of Inhumanity and several members of End of a Century Party like ruthlessly made fun of me for. I don't know what it was, but I'm sure that it was probably something really kind of I would cringe at this point in my life. But anyways, we played that. I don't know if we had the big band set up at that show. I really don't. No, remember.
I don't. That's the funny thing is that it just didn't.
In Marshall, we definitely had the big band. It was like. Right. But yeah, I think that was in Joe's head. Is like, oh, we're not just a band. We're a family of people. Like we're a collective of.
Encroaching on Manson family vibes.
But anyways, so we played that show. We played Marshall.
Also, I remember while we were just, living all together in this house and doing all this stuff, like, and as we were discussing off recording, there was a pull-out couch in the living room that supplied a never-ending supply of coins. We raided that thing fucking all the time because we could just go to the gas station and get a giant soda. So we would just go digging in that like every day, and I swear to God, we pulled out like $5 worth of change. I mean, not all at once, but we're just like, oh, this is enough, and just go over to the gas station and get a big nasty soda.
Well, so there was really, in many ways, a terrible time in my life, but there's this like really strong like nostalgia and like just really lovely memories of honestly just that, like us being like, all right, let's go down to the Dairy Mart and buy ourselves like a fucking what I call a mug jug, like a giant a giant thing of Coke or Diet Coke, or I wasn't drinking diet drinks at that point.
Oh no,
it was Coke,
no.
Yeah. So like, but yeah, like I don't know that I was eating very well.
I was going to say, I don't even know what we subsided on at that time. It was just like...
So I went from being like really strict vegan in the sense of no refined sugars to being like, well, I'm so depressed right now. I just want to drink I want to have all the processed sugars now. I feel like I might have went to the co-op and bought some things from time to time, but it was probably largely just what young people eat. A lot of spaghetti.
Crap,
yeah. And then during that time, I also booked a couple of shows. For some reason, Anna Sarka were on tour. There were a lot of bands that we were friends with on tour all at the same time. And Anna Sarka had several of their shows in Middle America fall through. So they decided to just kind of stay at our house. And Joe was so, in such a fucked up place mentally because of his very long-term relationship ending in a very not rad way. He wasn't around. He was the one who was friends with those guys, but it ended up, me and the Anna Sarka dudes ended up becoming pretty close, and they would sleep in my bedroom, and we would just like talk about shit and listen to music and, probably do dick tricks kind of shit, No, actually, that definitely happened because there was one night we were all hanging out. I had done a show it was Resin, One-Eyed God Prophecy. I don't remember who else played it, but it was definitely those two. And Locust and Jenny Piccolo jumped on because they were there as well. So the Resin, I was really tight with the Resin dudes, and we were all hanging out and joking around. And
wait, was this the Hamtramck show?
No, this is a show at 31G I booked. We didn't play it. We should have. It would have been a great show to play, but we didn't. Maybe Anna Sarka played it. I feel like they probably did. So one of the Anna Sarka dudes took a Stridex pad and rubbed it on his balls, and then like was rolling around in pain, saying, "Oh, my balls feel like a peppermint patty." But yeah, and this is just I'm sure probably things haven't changed that much, but like you get
they're still rubbing Stridex pads on their balls, to this day.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, you get a bunch of dudes in their late teens, early 20s together, and dicks get twisted around, and lots of perverted talk of like whatever come up. But,
hey guys, jerking off, am I right? Like that just happened a lot. It just did that.
Honestly, yeah.
So our friend Nate, like Rich said before, he would just show up, and I don't know how long he was there or when he showed up, but like I remember when he did, I think we had to pick him up from the airport, or he somehow showed up, or he took the train or something.
And his lady friend was with him too.
And his lady friend, he had a huge backpack, like this giant camping backpack that we'll just say he borrowed from somewhere. let's just put it that way. So when we were in awe of his ability to borrow things, so we were happy to see him, and Nate always had candy, which was helpful. He'd be like, "Hey, do you want some gum?" "Yes, I do. Thank you, Nate." And so we were getting close to leaving for the tour, and he went to the liquor store, and he stole a book of matches, and he got arrested for that the day before tour. So we had to get him out of jail right before going on tour. Gesundheit.
Thanks. There we go.
So, that's the one right there. We're keeping that on there. That's a good one.
That's a keeper.
Yeah, that's a take. So that was, if that's not an omen, I don't know what is. So let's just to reiterate.
Did we somehow find money, or did he get released on his own recognizance?
I think somehow he did. I think we did though. So let's just tally it up here. we're all, except for Chris, in pretty bad relationships. We're all kind of in a crazy funk, and this should be the time. Like, it's summer. I just graduated from high school. I don't know if Chris did too. I think he did. So we're just like, this should be fun time, but it was not. And then our friend just got put in jail the day before that we had to get out for stealing a matchbook. And then Chris's relationship at the time, Carrie, she booked the tour for us. So she was going with. Since she was in the band, the person that I was dating, she's going with because she's playing in the band too, and this seemed like a good idea at the time. Nate's going with. Nate's lady that he brought's going with. So that's 5 people. Then there's Joe and Chris. That's 7 people. Was there anybody else? Oh, and Graham. So that's 8 people. Graham. So there's 8 people in it was a large cargo van. It was but
it wasn't that large.
It wasn't that large. And the love seat that we had stolen or got off the street or whatever was not terribly comfortable.
Yeah, it wasn't comfortable. It was like that scratchy material that old couches were made out of.
And it was just not wide enough to have more than 3 people sit on anyway.
Well, I think that the plan was 4 people were going to have to sit on the couch. There would always have to be 2 people in the loft.
Right.
And then, a driver and passenger seat. That's, but yeah.
So it did not start off well.
No.
Already.
And real quick, I love Nate so much. I love telling stories about the weird shit that happened in his life. So one of the things, his siblings, he had some younger siblings who still stayed at home with his parents. And they, I guess, decided they were going to run away from home. Do you remember this story, Ian?
No.
So on Thanksgiving, they dosed they dosed the cherry pie with LSD. So I think they ended up getting away, they ended up running away because their parents were tripping balls for like a day or 2 straight. I don't know. I think that they got in trouble for it, but it doesn't matter whether they got in trouble. The fact that they fucking spiked the cherry pie with acid is amazing.
Oh my God. Yeah, I forgot about that. Holy shit. So yes, it was a circus of emotions with this crew already.
Yeah.
So we start off the tour, and was the first thing the More Than Music Fest?
No, the first thing was Hamtramck.
Oh, Jesus.
So
okay.
Yes, yeah. So we got in a vehicle, and I feel like I ended up riding down to Detroit, possibly with the resin dudes.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and then I rode from Detroit to Columbus with the resin dudes, to the point where you made some sort of catty comment about, "Oh, I guess you're in resin now, huh?"
We're off to a great start. Oh.
Yeah, but so we played. It was an all day 4th of July, I think it was, an all day sort of the 4th of July sort of celebration. There was, what I remember, it was supposed to be a potluck. Yeah. But I don't think that anyone actually brought any food, or the food that was there was like a bag of chips, a jar of peanut butter, and maybe someone got adventurous and made I don't know, some vegan potato salad or something. But it was out in the open. As I recall, there were flies all around. So it was yeah, no. But there was the most important part is I remember there was a trampoline. That's what I remember.
Yes, yeah.
And there was so many bands played that show. I want to say it was
One-Eyed God Prophecy, I remember specifically.
They did play it? Okay.
Yeah.
Inhumanity and End of a Century Party played it.
Was it Three
Locust?
Studies?
They might have. They may very well have.
I can't remember.
Locust and Jenny Piccolo played. I don't even remember. Anasarca possibly, but I don't know.
It was a big show for a house show.
It was a big show. There probably weren't that many people there. I don't know that we even got paid, or if we got paid, it might have been $20. But really, I don't know that we earned our keep at that show.
No, and let's talk about why.
Yeah, so we got down, we started playing, I think we, for some reason at this show, decided to open with I'm an Android.
Yeah.
And we're playing and we get, I think, to the first, like, that first break where it's just you and me, like me on bass and the drums, and like Chris is making noises. I'm like, okay, we're taking the wild ride tonight. Like he's just gonna do some weird feedback shit. That's cool. I'm with it. And then he just sort of takes his guitar off, puts it against the cabinet, turns the amp off, and walks upstairs. And I'm just fucking confused. I think Graham really had to be confused.
Yeah. Oh. He wasn't indoctrined into the sudden weirdness that he was. Yeah. Well, but so we were in the big band mode. There was, I believe that like Nate was blowing on one of those like train conductor whistle thingies, and so there were like 6 people in a basement. It was fucking and we
silly.
Also had the person on violin, and she was plugged into the PA too. So it was like, I'm sure the mix sounded not good.
Yeah, I wish there was video or live footage. Kind of, it would be cringy for sure. But
I think at that point I got pissed off because he just walked upstairs, and I just fucking threw my shit down, walked through my drum set, as I was walking by, like unplugged the pickup from the violin too, and just like stormed off and just left. And that was the show. That was our set. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
bye.
I think I just sort of put my head up against. There was a beam in the middle of the basement, like. And I just put my head against it. I'm like, I want to go home.
The theme of the second tour.
Yeah, I want to go home. I'm starving. I have no money. I have a girlfriend who I don't like a great deal, but like Joe had a talk with him afterwards. I thought we might have been done, like for the tour,
right, on
the first show of the tour, which. Like, at that point, I was like, I at least want to play this fest. There's going to be people there to see us,
There could not have been a more car dealership-sized red flag for this entire tour. And if that wasn't it, I don't know what is. Like,
but apparently, like, and I don't blame Chris one bit for this, because I didn't feel exactly comfortable with it either. But it's like, I don't really, like, on special occasions, it's cool, but I don't want, like, a dude, like, playing like with a block, hitting a or someone kind of playing violin but probably not.
Well, the thing is it's cool if we have somebody sleeping in a sleeping bag next to a candle on stage, occasionally jumping up, but when it's somebody else doing it, no.
Well, I don't blame him. It was a lot.
We should have practiced. Yes, it was. I mean, that looking back, that was absolutely silly, but I mean. Yeah. We all agreed to it, or we all, through gritted teeth, agreed to it.
Whereas I just shrugged my shoulders, as often was the case. Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Harmonica? Yeah, fine. All right.
But, at the end of the day, I really, I didn't get along with Graham very well on that tour, to be quite honest, but, like, I do feel bad for him.
I mean, we didn't know him either. It was weird. Have another person thrust in. Like, hey, learn all these songs. Okay, here we go. It wasn't like, it was weird. And it was the same thing with the other 2 people. It's like, it wasn't even learn all these songs. It was just, there you go. There's your part.
My contention would be if we just had Nate there, it wouldn't have been a problem. Like, so that happened. I guess we all worked it out for the first time of probably 20 on this tour, and gotten our respective vehicles. I think Graham and I actually rode with Resin all the way down to Columbus, and ended up. I woke up in the morning in bed with Ryan, the bassist of Resin. he was attempting to be fruitarian at that point. So I'm laying in bed and I look over, and he's eating a can of tomatoes.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Cool.
Good.
But I don't. Oh man, and if I remember right, someone had gotten up in the morning and put on Imperial Unrest's Imperial LP,
which is a great record.
Yeah,
still.
Yeah. But I don't know. So then we played Columbus Fest.
So we got to this fest, which was where?
It was at I want to say it was at a VFW.
It felt like that it was way bigger.
It was pretty big.
Place, and there were a lot of people there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like all tensions before were washed away by like, okay, despite the fact that we are not like quote unquote professional or whatever you want to call it, we really need to like stop fucking around. Let's just, so not only that, but so at some point, I don't know if it was on the first day or what, and I don't remember who it was. I believe it was Carrie though. Somebody found a used condom in the van, and it was a bummer. It was a bummer, and it turned out to be it was Nate and his friend,
his lady
friend, and we were kind of like, man, and there's no fingers being pointed, but like the general consensus is we're pretty uncomfortable with that for some reason. I mean,
the funny thing is I didn't give a shit. I was the only one, I think, that wasn't like...
I don't remember seriously being that invested in it either. I was just kind of like, that's gross, but all right.
Yeah. Well, and there were a lot of like sort of things that I was uncomfortable with. The fact is at that point, I think we had 3 people in the van who smoked cigarettes.
Oh yeah,
and I really wanted to put my foot down and be like, dude, you guys cannot smoke in the van.
Right.
I mean, truthfully, it's dangerous when you have a hole in your fucking gas tank.
That's a big thing.
Fumes rolling through the cabin.
Absolutely.
But I think what ended up happening is we like sort of compromised, and it was like, okay, you can smoke a cigarette if you're in the front seat, open the window, but I really didn't like it. I really didn't it was already into it.
It was already bad smelling in there, if not from the people, but from the gas too. So that did not help at all. So that was also uncool. Yeah. So I guess, I mean, honestly, like we were just like, look, man, like to Nate, it was like, this is not working. And it was fucking rough. I mean, he didn't take it. I mean, it's not that he didn't take it well, but he was crushed. He was very upset, and I remember him crying, and it was just like, oh.
See, that's the thing that's so funny to me is I must have not been there. I just don't remember it. I remember it after the fact. Like I remember like Carrie being pissed and Chris being like, that's kind of weird, and I think everybody else, like I think that Carrie was the most upset by it. Yeah. But in truthfully, there was I don't know a good way to say this. There were some like health concerns. With this person that was having sex in the van with Nate. There was definitely some worry that we may end up with some extra passengers in the van, so to speak. So
there were a lot of health concerns on that tour with other people that we won't get into, but it was like really, it was already it was already at the forefront. We were already like looking out for other people, so it was stressful. It was just it was stressful enough.
Yeah, and so I think we played the second day, and I just remember that's probably, quite honestly, the best show we ever played. Like
it really,
it was
a good one.
It's one of those ones, if you've played music with people for a while, everyone has that one show that like they go back to in their brain and how like elated they felt, playing it or how like intense it was.
I mean, that was the one where we played in front of a shit ton of people. They responded and we responded. Like everybody was on the same level at that point. And that's why I said before, we were just kind of like, okay, we need to actually not fuck around and do this right. You know, even though nobody said that, I think we all thought it.
Yeah. Well, it was certainly like, and it's one of those weird things where if you're feeding off the audience, if the audience is giving back what, you know, to you, like you just play better. Like you play better, you know, you give a better show. It's harder, like for the people who can do it with, you know, knowing that it's not going to be, you know, that no one's going to give a shit. Like that's hard to do. Like to really
it's hard to
just
drum up that energy.
Yeah. And we did, I think we did that fairly often, but like, this show there was probably 400 or 500 people there, or at least it felt like that.
And there were like, we were surrounded by people we knew. Like they were all in the forefront, and there were people sobbing. That's what I was going to say. There are photos on the internet from Sean Scallon has taken photos. You can see people in the background like sobbing, which is it's still weird. It's you know, I mean, I don't know what people think or thought of us at the time, but like it's a weird thing, man. Like when you're playing and you're doing that, and this is not like, you know, fucking Teen Stars or something where people are just, there's just a wave of emotion they can't handle because they're so excited to see you. It's like, no, we're just dirty, stinky people playing this stuff, and like everybody is just responding like that, and you're like, what did I do? You know, like for me at least, there's like a little bit of like, did we do something wrong? But we didn't. You know, it's just weird. You're like, wow, this is doing that to you. Like, I don't know. It was amazing. It's an amazing feeling, but it's also a little bit uncomfortable because
I think for me personally, I was more comfortable with it than, I think you were never quite comfortable with like the things like the fact that people would come up to you and try to like chat you up. You weren't as comfortable with that as I was. Like,
I'm not
to me it was
with
like
emotions in general, quite honestly. Like that's I'll just say
well, and for me, like my attitude especially back then was like, you know, oh, you're just a friend I haven't met yet, you know, like serious, like just fucking colloquialisms all over the place. But like, so for me, like the idea of meeting someone and being friends with them was like, it's like I was never popular in high school. I was sad all the time. Like it's making me happy that like I can connect with people on this level. But so we played and it was intense, and
our friend Tom Lamacchio was openly sobbing and hugging Joe like that. I remember that specific. I mean, it was like
I kind of feel like so a year or so later after we had broken up, I was in the band Race Trader briefly, like for a few months, and my experience with being in Race Trader was that people would come to see Race Trader just to argue politics with them. and I feel like to an extent with Constantine, especially at those fests, really at the fests, it wasn't like at the local shows this really happened hardly ever, but like people just came to like cry or like have some sort of emotional catharsis, you know, like,
I mean,
and you know, I'm not saying that's bad, but it's definitely like, wow, so we, I guess, either service that need or create the environment to where they can nurture that need, you know?
Which is, you know, I can't speak for other bands, but like I know some people maybe outside of the circle or whatever think about like emotional hardcore, emo, whatever you want to call it. We're not calling it screamo. They think about it's just this kind of act or whatever, and it's not like, I don't know. We've kind of talked to us about this before, where it's not like we're purposely trying to put out this thing, but it's just that's how it happened. I mean, I don't know how else. You know, I
think there's no better opportunity. Like you're a fucked up kid, like experiencing like kind of messed up things, and you're just trying to figure out how to navigate life in general. I mean, I don't think there's a better, like, I don't think that there's a better candidate for someone sincerely being that person than that. Like,
I mean, and that's kind of what I was getting to, is like, when you don't have a place to put that, this is actually a really good thing, you know? And I mean, like, is it something you want to go back and listen to? I don't know. You know, or is it something, most of the time not. Is it something you want to experience all the time? No. But like, it was kind of right time, right place for that. And I mean, some people might laugh at that, you know, and whatever, but like, seriously, it was kind of, I don't know, whether we realized it or not, this stuff, like, it really hit, you know, like, okay.
Well, I guess we should also mention that this kicks off our tour with Julia. Not that that neither here nor there, but
you know, that helped out. So that was a really great, show. Again, there are photos. I guess there's like at least 3 or 4 photos that I know that are floating around the internet. I was wearing a Purdue shirt.
I was wearing a burgundy, very oversized Champion t-shirt, and I had a necklace on that had like a token or something from Tokyo that the girl I was dating had given to me. And
I think Joe was wearing his Detroit, like a Motown Detroit shirt, white shirt. Yeah. So if you see those photos, that's what that's from. And we're surrounded by people, and I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. But that was a big thing. That was a pretty big thing, and that was also I don't know if we mentioned this before, but that was the first time we saw Joan of Arc, ex-Cap and Jazz, which was hilarious to watch because people were so excited thinking it was going to be Cap and Jazz 2, and it just sounded like they were tuning up for 30 minutes.
Oh, also, I guess I should mention, I believe that this fest was actually called More Than Music? ? So
it wasn't established yet.
Yeah, well, so the person who did it that year was, I think his name was Clay. He didn't subscribe to the same mindset that Grace did or many of the other people, where it was like, oh well, this is bigger than just music. This is a gathering place, you know, blah blah. Yeah. So yeah, his attitude was like, oh, we're not going to, like, if you want to like do a spoken word, you know, when bands are playing, I can't stop you and I won't try to, but like, we're not going to make space for that.
Right. And so, I don't remember that happening too often, but then again, I wasn't paying attention. So.
What's that? Like, the spoken words?
Any spoken words. I don't remember there being as many.
So, yeah, there definitely were not as many as that. Is that 95? No. There definitely were some, but it wasn't like crazy amounts. Where did we stay? I feel like we may have stayed
at a hotel.
The Neil House. Oh, we did have a hotel.
I think for at least 1 or 2 nights we had a hotel.
Yeah. And then the third day, Julia played the third day. I think so did the Locust and Jenny Piccolo. Good side
story. I think we were like, our merch table was camped out near the Locust, if I remember correctly.
That's possibly, yeah.
That was the time when they had the like Mentors shirt. I think they just had like fucking what's his face.
Oh, El Duce.
They had El Duce in the leather mask, like just that's great. It might have been that, or it might have been Fee Waybill from the Tubes doing Mondo Bondage. I can't remember. I guess, and I remember some kid like walking up and he's like, "Hey, do you guys have this in emo sizes?" This was also the time like Joe had Bomb's Lullaby cassettes, and that he was selling on their tour. And I think by that time he had already sold out of them. God, so there might be a very tiny limited run. I don't know if anybody has those, but yes, there were originally demo tapes of that in silk screened.
Yeah,
manila envelopes.
GoCo screened.
Yes.
I actually had one. I think I gave it to someone at some point. I regret doing that, but yeah.
Oh, one more thing about Ohio, though, and I think you're right. We did stay at the Neil House because the person I was dating at the time, we were walking down the street. I don't know if we were going to get something to eat or something happened. I don't know, but a guy approached us. He locked eyes with us and just pulled out a butterfly knife and was just doing butterfly knife tricks as he's walking toward us. And he just walked past us, like flipping and we're like, you know what? I'll go to bed hungry. Let's go back. And I think we like went the long way back before we left. So
Good
yeah, that
Lord.
happened.
So we showed up, I want to say, at the third day, and we hung out for a while. And we were going to play a show in Bloomington that night.
Mm.
And I definitely like got cold feet about playing because the girl who had broken my heart was going to be there almost certainly. And that led to an argument. You were kind of pissed at me. I guess I can't say I blame you. I mean, it was just sort of, I wasn't handling. Obviously, I understand why I was feeling the way I was, but
Of course.
But yeah, so we ended up showing up. The dude who booked us, his name was Steve Duginski, I believe.
Wow.
And as soon as we pulled up, well, he sang for him once again, so that's why I remember.
Okay.
But as soon as like we pull up, he runs out to our van and is like just pleading with us, begging us, dude, you have to play on the stage. Come on, man, you have to play on the stage. And we're all like, okay, I guess. So we got there, and that's, I think, possibly the only time we played on a stage that.
Yeah, probably.
Or one of the very few, anyways. There weren't many stages to begin with. But, like, yeah, and Joe, because he didn't want us to lose our vibe, he had people sitting on the stage around.
I feel like he invited the entire audience on
Yes.
stage, which was not that much, so they could fit on stage. So, yes, we played a show. We're like, hey, everybody, come on up. And they sat on stage.
Yeah.
Which was not that big to begin with. And I think that further pissed off the sound guy as well.
Probably. I mean, there's a lot of things that if you don't think about it, you just don't think about pissing off a sound guy. But I've done things like thrown mics, not even thinking about the fact that sound guy probably hates you, right? Because you just threw his SM57.
Sure, and I've been a sound guy before, and I've had to deal with stuff like that. And I mean, I guess it depends on how dedicated you are to the venue that you're working at, but I can see where that would be highly annoying if you just don't want to work with the sound guy, like it's kind of whatever. But I mean, in my experience, I'd just be like, all right, have fun. Here's the mic. I want to go home. Bye. Like that kind of thing. But yeah, this was different, so I don't know.
But yeah, so she showed up, the young woman. And I don't know. I felt all kinds of fucked up. I think she went hi, I don't know. She thought it was gonna be just sweetness and light or whatever.
Yeah.
We ended up talking things out, and I felt a lot better afterwards, I guess. But it was a weird show, and I don't know that we got paid. It was us and Julia in 400 years. We never really. Even though we were touring with them, we never really got super tight with the Julia dudes at all.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so there was that. I don't think other than us having a little bit of an argument about actually playing the show, I don't know that, I don't remember anything very specific about that show.
There were other points of tension. Yeah, about certain passengers and health
okay.
Things.
Oh, yeah.
So
there was so much of that I just kind of, yeah.
But this was, to me, it was more noticeable. Mm-hmm. And we were kind of okay, so it just threw it on, the pile of bad feelings grew. Mm-hmm. So that happened. And then where did we go?
We ate at a pizza place.
Well, that's where the bad things happened, but.
Oh, it was? Okay. Yeah. And I don't know where we stayed that night. I feel like we stayed in our van, possibly.
Yeah, that was a blur.
Maybe Knoxville? Maybe we played Knoxville?
I think that was
it's weird. That's the only place we ever played, on a tour twice.
Yeah.
We played the first time there, and it kind of seems to make no sense. We were pretty damn close by that point to the East Coast. Knoxville's really not that far from Virginia, but so we played there, and we played in a house that I remember. The thing I remember about it was it was empty, it was a rental space property or something. There was nothing in there, literally nothing.
Yeah,
and it was very small, and it had air conditioning on, so it felt really good. I kind of feel like that was a situation where someone in Knoxville had a dad who was, you know, worked in real estate and was getting ready to rent this place, and you know, maybe the kid figured, well, what he doesn't know won't hurt him,
Right,
so I'm going to invite, you know, 10 or 20 people in vans to play here, and then maybe 10 or 20 more people will come to see us,
Right.
you know. And God, I don't.
Wait, was that show? And then we played with Thumbnail there, right?
No, we never. Well, we did play. That was in Arkansas.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
So like we, we played Knoxville.
I don't think we played to like anybody at that one.
Yeah, I want to say there were maybe 4 or 5 people that paid at the very most. It was us and Julia and the Deadwood Divine, aka Tom Lamacchio.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't remember much about it. These are all like kind of the build-ups to where it starts getting ugly. We started getting really ugly. I would say the beginning of the end started in Little Rock, Arkansas, which we'll talk about next time.
Yeah. That's a good one to start off with. Okay.
Yeah. So
thanks for listening. Get ready for part 2 of more downer stories, because here they come. Oh boy.
Yeah.